Thank you, and thank you very much also to the Bar Association, especially the leadership, for this honor of speaking to us all on the state of the nation. Regarding whether or not we have succeeded, I think it's too early, it's early days, to say whether we've succeeded in turning the pandemic into an opportunity. But I must say that the pandemic itself presents an opportunity, and we as a government have seen it as such, as an opportunity to do so many different things. First of all, even just in scaling up our medical response and our capacity to be able to respond to pandemics now or in the future. As you know, we used to have 4 molecular laboratories. Now we have 64 molecular laboratories. We have now capacity for far more ICU beds. We have, I think, now something in the order of over 300 ICU beds, and over several now, just in terms of other bed space and hospital capacity. That is also considerably high today. But we've also, in terms of just improving capacity and improving our ability to respond, just on the medical side alone, you will see that, at a point, we were worried about just the capacity to provide oxygen. Now we have several facilities for oxygen. Even oxygen production has actually gone up in Nigeria, and that means that today we're able to do much more. Even with our capacities in the hospitals, we now have about, just bed capacity alone, 7,190 beds. We have about 20,000 health workers that have been trained on infection and control. We have over 4,000 now oxygen delivery equipment and accessories nationwide, and we've also been able to provide about a minimum of about ₦1 billion to each state just to improve their capacity. Lagos State alone had about 10 billion. So just in terms of improving medical capacity, a lot has happened. But then that's on the medical or the healthcare side. On the economic side, obviously you've spoken about the economic sustainability plan, and this has provided, again, yet another opportunity of addressing some of the serious concerns that we have on the economy. I think for us as a government, one of the key worries that we had was more for how this would affect jobs and job production and job sustenance. And I think that what we saw was a problem, a very big problem, with the informal workers, and persons who have to work day to day for their survival. And what we tended to see there was that people like, just to take an example, tailors, artisans, caterers, event planners, decorators, makeup artists, hairdressers, barbers, tailors even for ashrebi, printers, souvenir dealers, people like that, obviously were in trouble, and we needed to address the concerns that they had, because these people rely on an ecosystem that had collapsed with the COVID-19 pandemic. And that's aside from big industries such as hospitality. Of course, occupancy rates in hotels fell, in some big hotels below 10%. Even hospitals, even private hospitals, experienced problems because people avoided private hospitals, same as aviation. And of course, we know all the problems associated with that. So we're concerned with saving those jobs, which is why we put in place what we've described as a survival fund, which will cater for artisans, 42,000 per state for a start, across the states, and that will be in the form of support for artisans. We also have a payroll support scheme, which will support persons, especially in private school teachers, for example, and then small businesses who employ up to and not more than about 50 persons. We also have some kind of support for them. At the moment, we're in the process, of compiling that data, and the criteria has been set already. That committee is headed by the Honorable Minister of State for Industry, Trade and Investment, and the Vice Chair is Mrs. Timbuktoo, the chairperson of First Bank. So they are basically looking at the criteria for giving out this payroll support, and also for several of the other support schemes that we have. So by and large, we're tackling those issues. Of course, we're also looking at the bigger issues. How do we support aviation? How do we support the hospitality industry? And these are big areas where we're looking at support. Now, in the first place, you're probably aware that the CBN has already put in place several mechanisms for ensuring that loans that have been taken by companies and by some of these big enterprises in the sectors that I've just mentioned, that there is some succor for them in the form of restructuring of their loans, lower interest in some cases, in some moratorium is granted, and all of that. I'm just picking the headlines of some of these efforts. And of course, the Bank of Industry has also had to reduce interest rates in many cases and restructure facilities. So there is a wide range of issues. I'm sure we'll get to talk about them in some detail later on. But this is just to give you a broad, if you like, a broad framework of the kinds of efforts that are going on. And this is, of course, yeah. So I think I'll just hold on here so that I don't take on too much time. I'm sure we might come back to these as we go along. Thank you. In terms of the contraction to GDP, just as you pointed out, several of the comparator countries, or the countries that we compare ourselves to, have, in terms of contraction, been much worse than we have. And so there's a sense in which we can feel happy, a bit happier with ourselves, I suppose. But again, we mustn't forget that economies, like politics, is local. So you have to concern yourself with your own problems and with your own issues. I mean, well, while it's helpful for us to say, well, in the UK, contraction was minus 20% of GDP, in France, minus 14, in Germany, minus 10, in Israel, minus 29. South Africa is even projected to be between 20 and 50%, while we can say so. And Nigeria is only minus 6%. The truth and the reality is what the people feel. Obviously today, there is a considerable anxiety. There's an economic decline of the sort that affects everyone. It affects services. It affects even lawyers. I mean, lawyers will tell you that they are going through very difficult times, let alone other people in different services and all that. So the truth of the matter is that our contraction of minus 6% is good, is better than others, but it is still only part of the story. The real story, of course, is that we are experiencing a severe economic decline. We're experiencing a severe decline in domestic resources, in tax, etc. We're experiencing a severe decline in employment. So there are many, many job losses. So our response to that is really what I think is important. And that is, first, we are concerned with saving jobs, and we're concerned with creating other jobs. And the way we've chosen to go about this, especially as part of the Economic Sustainability Plan, is by ensuring, or by insisting in the plan, that we will focus on local industry, local production, using local resources. So for example, our mass agricultural program is one that we expect will bring in loads of jobs. We're looking at, in every state, bringing between 30 and 100,000 hectares of land under cultivation. And we're bringing in that many new farmers. As a matter of fact, as of today, we've registered over 5 million farmers, and we have actually attached them to their land. So we have GIS that shows who the farmer is, where his land is. And what we're doing also is that these farmers, these small farmers, are now aggregated under some of our partners who are more like anchors. So we have partners, huge partners like Babangona, like Thrive Agric, like Thrive Agric, who are big partners like Olam, who already have big farms. Now these big farm owners are already established, and what they do is that they act as anchors to the small farmers. So to some extent they guarantee that the small farmers will produce and they will offtake what the small farmers produce. And we have quite a few of these the huge farmers who are taking on the smaller farmers. And government then becomes the off-taker of last resort, or the purchaser of last resort. So in the event that some of this produce cannot be bought, government will buy. This is just to ensure that production continues, to ensure that the agricultural sector is well resourced. We're also, of course, concerned with losses, with losses in the cause of, especially in the value chain. All sorts of severe losses, as you know. Sometimes we lose up to 40% of production in the farms. So we're trying to ameliorate that as well as we look at the entire value chain. So we're concerned also with ensuring that the value chain is much stronger, so that jobs are created all along the line. Agri-production is a serious part of the work that we're trying to do. That is for agriculture. Then we have mass housing. This again focuses on local materials. We're looking at about 300,000 housing units, low-cost housing units. And we're thinking, and today we already have a plan, we already have a design that will be able to bring in a small 2-bedroom apartment for 2 million naira, or under 2 million naira. As a matter of fact, we're looking at between 1.8 million and 2 million naira. Now, how do we intend to do this? First is by ensuring that as much as possible, we use local materials and local resources. So, doors, nails, window frames, etc., we will source locally. Of course, blocks and all of that will source locally. We have cement, all of those will be sourced locally. Each site would have, as it were, its own systems production unit, where people are making blocks, those who are making doors, making window frames, etc. We'll provide facilities, in some cases, for the production of some of these things. And our Family Homes Fund, as well as the Ministry of Housing, is actively engaged in doing this. We already have 11 states that have given up land for this purpose, and we're looking at getting more land from each of the individual states in order to be able to do this. But what I want to emphasize is that this is about local production. It is about local resources. The contractors who will be building the land will be small businesses, that will register on, online in the different states. So these small businesses, these small building construction companies, not the huge ones, will be the ones who will be taking batches of houses and build, batches of houses across the country, so that we can actively engage young engineers, young surveyors, young builders, etc., who at this point may be out of work. Then we have a solar home system as well, solar home systems project as well. As you know, with the support of the World Bank, we are putting in 5 million homes, solar home systems in 5 million homes. Now that means a huge number of jobs. First, in the assembly of the home systems locally, before we begin any sort of manufacturing, we don't have that capacity yet. And then in the installation and in the running of the payment systems for these solar home systems as well. Well, so we think that this will also create an immense amount of jobs. So really, I think that our response to the pandemic is one that I believe is robust. As you know, we're putting 2.3 million in terms of a stimulus package. And just to understand this 2.3 million, it's not all cash, it's not as if all of that cash is available. About 1.2 trillion of it is in the form of loans and facilities supported by the CBN to be given, for example, for the solar home systems project, for the housing project, for the agriculture project as well. These are loans directly to farmers, loans directly to manufacturers, and to provide off-take facilities as well. So here, I think our response is robust. We need to move quickly. We need speed, and I think that with what we have in place, we really can respond in the best possible way to this, and not think that our circumstances are much better than other countries. As a matter of fact, we're in relatively dire straits, and I think that we must respond in that way. Thank you. Just yesterday, the Federal Executive Council approved forensic auditors led by Ernst & Young. Ernst & Young, as you know, is is an international firm of auditors, and the auditors are led by Ernst & Young. There's a fairly long list of auditors that were recommended by the Auditor General, which, as I'm sure you know, is the law. When you want to audit a federal government enterprise, it is the Auditor General that makes the recommendation of who the auditors will be. Then it goes through the Bureau of Public Procurement and all that. But I can tell you today that as of yesterday, a team of auditors led by Ernst & Young will be auditing the NDDC. So that I think is the answer to that. The other question that you asked is one that I am not certain what sort of facts you have, but if you say that a person is apparently corrupt, I think that concrete allegations have to be made. Those allegations have to be investigated. So far, I'm sure you are aware, we've had several individuals within our government against whom allegations have been made. Those allegations were investigated, and in many cases, those who were accused were suspended while the investigations were going on. And then government resolved the issue one way or the other. I'm sure you're aware of the Secretary to Government of the former Secretary to Government of the Federation, the former DG of the NIA, and some, and others such as that. So I don't think that there is any reticence in terms of reacting to allegations of corruption. I think that those allegations have to be properly investigated. There has to be fair hearing, and steps then have to be taken. So I don't think that our record so far shows any reticence on our part or reluctance on our part to live up to our own stated aspirations and stated objectives as a government. Well, Nduka, let me just say that question appears to me to be loaded, and I'm not going to take the bait. Frankly, let me say to you that one learns every day, and I am learning every day, and I pray that God helping us, by 2023 I would have learned a great deal. But I will not, of course, as you know, today I'm completely focused on what it is that we are confronted with. We are confronted, as the Right Honourable Speaker has said, with possibly the gravest pandemic, the greatest public health crisis of our generation, and possibly the greatest economic decline, global economic decline of our generation. So we are challenged by these very significant issues, and we are in some senses privileged, and at the same time we must approach it with a great deal of humility. We're privileged to be in service at this time, to be called upon to resolve some of these great issues. So that is where my focus is today, how I will learn, what I will learn. Of course, the coming years will be the only judge of that. Thank you very much. Of importance because of in my view, because of the fact that lives are involved. I want to say that the mindless, callous killings in southern Kaduna are heartbreaking. And again, we must condole those who have lost loved ones and those injured or who have suffered loss of property. Now, these tragedies are completely unacceptable and they are avoidable. I've been involved since about 2001 through the work of the Macedonian Initiative, an NGO that focused on relief materials, giving relief materials to displaced persons, since 2001 in southern Kaduna and several other places, especially in the north-central part of Nigeria. But the deadly violence in southern Kaduna has continued over the years. There have been judicial commissions, etc., all sorts, but the problem remains. So there is a need to address the underlying issues. There's a need to address those. I'll come to that in a moment. But what are we doing? What is the government doing? First, is the improvement of security in southern Kaduna. Now we have a military base there for the first time. We now have a military base. We also have a lot of Air Force surveillance. We have about 500 conventional and mobile policemen in Zagun, Kataf, and Kawara local government. And then the combined military teams from the Army, the Navy, who are also on ground 24 hours. That's basically to just take care of the volatile situation there. The President has also had several Security Council meetings. I've attended all of those meetings where the issues have been discussed, and the possibilities of engagement have also been discussed. I've also engaged with community leaders in southern Kaduna, and also I've engaged with the governor to look at what peacemaking efforts are possible. What can we do to ensure that these killings and this disgraceful human condition there is dealt with? And some of the peacemaking efforts have been fairly successful. Recently, I'm sure you've heard of the rapprochement between the Zagon Kataf community and the Hausa Fulani community. And we hope that that will develop into something that not only will be permanent, but will be a template for making peace in the future. But I think we must address also the fundamental issues. We can't sweep those issues under the carpet. Justice, the cries of economic marginalization, the fact that we must prosecute persons responsible for these murders, otherwise impunity will worsen, and also support to those who have lost their properties and breadwinners. I think some of these issues must also be addressed as we go forward. And what we've been trying to do, the President, of course, has taken several steps aside from the engagements with the governor and also with the communities there. We're also working, and of course one cannot disclose all of what is going on for reasons of confidentiality and security. But there's also a lot of work going on to ensure that some of these fundamental issues are addressed. And it's an evolving situation. But it's something we simply cannot afford to ignore. It is, and it's gone on for far too long in my view. And it is redressable, it is possible for us to resolve these issues. That is on the Southern Kaduna issue. The other point you made, the other question you asked was with respect to CAMA, which is the Company and Allied Matters Act. Let me say first that, as you know, the Companies and Allied Matters Act is a very huge legislation, has over 870 sections or so. So it's a massive legislation that covers a wide range of issues of companies, all sorts of issues on companies, general meetings, appointment of directors, etc. Now there's a small portion of it called the Incorporated Trustees section. That small section of it is the section that regulates charities. Now churches and mosques and such organizations are regarded as charities. So it is the Incorporated Trustees section of the Companies and Allied Matters Act that has become controversial. And because churches are charities, the provisions in the Incorporated Trustees Act obviously affect the churches. Now, what the churches are concerned about is a provision that says, I think there are about 2 or 3 provisions, but the main one is the one that says that in the event that some wrongdoing is found in the by or perpetrated by the trustees of the particular organization or church, the Registrar General can go to court, get an order to appoint interim administrators or interim trustees for the church or for whichever organization, whichever charity that may be, and then, as it were, manage the affairs of such a trust. Now, the concern of the churches is that it could lead to a situation where practically anybody could be appointed as a trustee to oversee a church, and a church obviously, or a mosque or a religious organization is obviously a spiritual organization. And if you are not, if you do not belong, if you don't share that faith, or you simply do not even have any faith at all, you may be the wrong person, and the wrong person may be appointed and create more trouble than was initially the matter before the trustees were appointed. Now, my view, what I have also suggested to several of the groups that I've spoken to and the leaderships that I've spoken to, is that we have a process by which this can be redressed. The Right Honourable Speaker of the Assembly is here. The Right Honourable Speaker of the House of Representatives is here. We have the President of the Senate, and we also have the President. What can be done is that whatever the proposals for amendment may be, whatever the views of the church leadership may be regarding the question of how the trustees and where there are interim trustees or whatever can be managed, that should be put into proposals that can be brought before the National Assembly, before the National Assembly leadership, for a consideration of amendments to the law. That is a process which is entirely open, and I believe that that's a process that ought to be pursued. Where citizens or groups have concerns, where they have serious concerns, we are in a democracy. There's a process by which this can be done, and that process is one where we bring forward amendments to the National Assembly, and the National Assembly, I'm sure, will do whatever is considered needful in the circumstances. So this is my position. I think that yes, the controversy is one that has generated a lot of fervor, but the solution to me seems also to be quite evident. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Vice President. We just have about 2 or 3 minutes, but just to dig deeper, yes, an amendment can be made.
Okay, thank you very much. First, let me say that as a general position, I do not think it is right to say that pastors do not want to be accountable. As a matter of fact, as you know, I'm a pastor. So I know that question is also partly directed to me. But I must say that that is not the case. I believe that several Christian organizations and pastors are willing to be accountable. But I think that the problems that they may have are with ensuring that processes are not abused in such a way as to compromise the entire organization. And I think that if all that is required is some process of accountability, I think it would be easier for organizations to accept that. But where there might be a takeover of the management of the organization, I think that there may be fears as to whether such could be abused, And really what needs to be done then is to put in place checks and balances to ensure that there is no abuse in the event that such provisions are activated in any way, or even to modify those provisions to allay everybody's fears. But I don't think that is a matter of pastors being fearful of accountability. I think that all of us are subject to law, and we must accept that the laws of Nigeria govern all of us, and we have no choice but to submit to those laws. But fortunately, we're in a democracy, so that we can also advance our own views and opinions, even after the law has been passed, for possible amendments. So where do I see Nigeria in the next 5 years? I must say that we've seen all of the challenges. We know that in the next 5 years, our population is going to increase. The number of young people looking for jobs will increase. There will be greater pressure on our resources. But I also strongly believe that we are in the best possible time in our history. We're in the best possible time in terms of the opportunities that are available. And we must make those opportunities available. First, as government, it is our role, and I think the government's role is particularly important. As government, it is our role to create the enabling environment for business to thrive and to prosper. And that means ensuring that we remove whatever the hindrances are to doing business in Nigeria. Some of those encumbrances, for instance, tax. We've done quite a bit with tax. If your turnover is less than 25 million a year as a company, it's a zero tax policy. If you're between 25 million and 100 million, you are paying 20% tax, 10% less than it was before. So we need to clean up the tax environment. We need to ensure that multiple taxation does not occur. For example, just here in Abuja, I know that the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory has been working very hard, alongside all of us, in ensuring that those who do business here are not exposed to multiple taxation and all sorts of other hindrances that are put in people's way. We've been working with NAFTA. NAFTA is an organization that registers products, but sometimes it takes too long to register a product. So I want to put my product on the market, because obviously several people all over the country are bringing forward their products. It can take forever and a day to be able to register a product. Now, if I don't register my product, I can't sell my product in the supermarkets. So products that are coming in from Ghana, products coming in from elsewhere in the world, that have already been registered in their own countries are on our shelves in our supermarkets, where our own manufacturers are having difficulties. So we're tackling this with NAFTA. Obviously, they have their constraints, and we're trying to resolve those constraints as we go forward. So we want to be a manufacturing hub for the rest of Africa. We've signed on to the AFCTA, the free trade agreement. We've signed on to that. So we want to be the hub, and we can be the hub of manufacturing. We can be the hub of agriculture. We have the men, we have the resources, we have the land. So that is one. We can also be the technology hub of Africa, and indeed for many parts of the world. Microsoft has already announced that it will be setting up its facility here, its Africa facility here. Several countries are interested in technology and the potential. Now, on our part as a government, we're also working hard to ensure that we do not overregulate that space. So fintech companies, for instance, we're ensuring that the central bank doesn't overregulate them, allows them to perform, allows them to blossom. And the same thing we're trying to do with the creation of hubs, with the support for technology. Just about a couple of weeks ago, the Ministry of Youth and Sports got a 75 billion youth fund. Now that youth fund, a substantial amount of it will be devoted to technology. We believe that we can be the technology hub of Nigeria. Frankly, I am convinced that we have everything it takes to be the kind of country that we all dream of. But we have our constraints, and we're Nigerians. We know what our constraints are. Petty corruption, grand corruption, everybody's standing in the way, trying to put a toll gate in your way to prevent or to take something off you before you're able to do anything. But we can resolve those issues. With more technology, it can become easier for us to get passports using technology, and which is what we're investing in. We're investing a great deal more in technology so that there is no human interference in doing a lot of what you want to do. So you don't pay, you don't have to go and see someone before you can get a passport, you don't see someone before you can get a license or any kinds of approvals. The more technology we introduce, the easier it is for people to do their business without the obstacles that are all over the place. And finally, I think that one of the critical problems, one of the critical issues for us is infrastructure. This government has devoted tremendous resources to infrastructure. The railway, for example, the railway from Lagos to Kano, starting from the Apapa port, in order to be able to clear the Apapa port so that we can move goods out of Lagos, and the busiest port is Lagos. The roads, the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, etc., and several other roads, you know, Abuja, Kaduna, so many of the different, Abuja, Kano, and so many of the different road networks across the country. We've been lucky that we've had the National Assembly supporting in ensuring that this infrastructure is built. We need infrastructure, we need to build infrastructure, but we need to fund infrastructure also, and we don't have the resources. Which is why we're doing so many different things. Of course, we're lending money, and we're putting our money in infrastructure. If you lend money, if you put it in infrastructure, that is profitable because it means that your business environment is improved. So I see a great Nigeria. I think that we have more than the potential to go where we please, and we mustn't in any way allow people to talk this country down. You know, we can't allow that. Because if we do, this will be the biggest drawback for us. So I believe very strongly that our country can be great and will be great. And I see that in the next 5 years, despite the challenges we see today, the future is certainly very, very bright. Thank you.